Greetings, everyone. DFG here, Gideonsflight. Hey, just wanted to take a minute of your time just to share some thoughts around recent occurrence and give some perspective on uh, that situation. And in this instance, I'm talking about I'll call it the shockingly tragic death of Aaron Hernandez. If you're in New England, you'll probably know who Aaron Hernandez is extremely well. And if you're a sports fan, you probably know him almost equally as well. And the story with Mr. Hernandez has been a tragic story, as you heard this morning, or some of you may have heard this morning. He was found hanged to death inside of his prison cell, and they suspect that it was suicide. Still investigating it, but that's all indications point to that it was suicide. The reason I wanted to talk about this morning is for that very reason, the whole suicide component. In no way, I want to say this out front. Am I an apologist for Aaron Hernandez or anything of that nature? So I say that before I share my thoughts because I don't want anyone to misinterpret the true meaning or the true message that I intend to share over the next 5-6 minutes. But when you look at Aaron Hernandez and the situation, what really provoked me to want to do the video this morning is I was watching sports news program, ESPN. And ESPN decided that they wanted to share some comments. They got Stephen A. Smith, one of their commentators, to come on and pretty much, put Aaron Hernandez, on blast. And, talked about, he's not going to find any sympathy here, you know what I'm saying? And if he's looking for it, he's not getting it, as though the Hernandez family called ESPN and asked ESPN to put in a good word for their son. I'm quite certain they didn't do that. But my disappointment with ESPN, Stephen Smith, and the rest of that crew is the insensitivity of the whole situation. And yes, I know people can say the Olin Lord family went through the same thing, and truly they did. They lost a son. I'm not sure if he had kids, but possibly his kids lost a father. Siblings lost a brother. But you can't let one situation take away from another situation, because at the end of the day, Aaron Hernandez's 4-year-old daughter lost a father. Aaron Hernandez's mother lost a son, and his wife lost a husband, and tragically at 27 years old. And the reason it's frustrating to hear someone say this or making these kind of comments in a national program like that, because it really undermines the value of life, and it definitely marginalizes, just how serious suicide, really is. And when you go back and you look at Aaron Hernandez's life, this is a man who lost his father at a very young age. This is a man who probably got involved in gang, activity, because when you're living in the inner cities in the United States of America, it is very hard to avoid the kind of peer pressure you can be up, especially if you're a talented, individual like Aaron Hernandez was, with sports. And if you think that Aaron Hernandez can just brush off, peer influence, or brush off, gang members who want to become, brothers and bring him into their group, you have no understanding, or at least you're not being honest about how difficult that would be for a young fatherless man, being raised up in that type of environment. In essence, it's not the same thing as your kid, getting told by his friends, let's go in the backyard and have a beer. And your kid said, no, I'm not going to have a beer. And then, the guys call him a chicken and he goes home. And some of these inner cities, and I'm from the inner cities and I have family members from the inner cities. So, so I have some experience with this. It's not that easy. Turning these friends away could be life and death at certain times and under certain circumstances. So it's not the same thing. And then to make a comment, in my opinion, so irresponsible in terms of ESPN and Stephen A. Smith and the other guests that's on that show, to say that he's not going to find any sympathy here, he's not going to find any empathy here. Well, who are you to judge? Who are you to determine, what kind of person at the end of the day this young man became because of those influences? You don't know that. You didn't walk in his shoes. It sounds like to me, and then they bring up the fact that he had $40 million and he played for the Patriots and Robert Kraft and all of this stuff. Well, you know what? That was his job. Do you do anything outside of your job? How much control does your job have over you? Do you have a personal life? Do you have other things that matter to you? Do you have friends and family and other influences outside of your job that matters to you? You've never been influenced by any of those things that cause something to happen on the job that cause you problems? Calling out sick, coming to work late, taking time off because of activities you did externally that affected your internal or could have affected your internal performance. So when you start looking at, these indicators, you have to understand that everything is not the same. Everything is not cookie cutter here. And again, I didn't know Mr. Hernandez. And again, I'm not an apologist for Mr. Hernandez. And I watched the first trial. And quite frankly, I thought he was very smug and I thought he was very indifferent. And I felt that, he didn't seem to be very repentant at all about the situation. But that doesn't interfere with the fact that his family lost a son. His family, his daughter lost a father. And quite frankly, the community, has another tragic story to tell. And I don't know how many more stories do we have to tell without someone having some type of empathy and say, you know what, let's peel back the layers here and let's take a closer look to see if there's something that could have been done. And if we couldn't get it done when he was a kid, and we couldn't get it done when he was in college at the University of Florida, where I'm sure he had all kind of peer pressure coming at him. And if you haven't been to college or university away from home, you probably have no idea. And if you have been, you know what I'm talking about. And then coming into the NFL as a young man, with clinger-ons and friends, with so much money and accessibility that, how could you say a 22 or 23, 24-year-old could not get confused and make a very poor decision? We've all made poor decisions. You made poor decisions. I'm sure if somebody went back and looked at Stephen A. Smith and looked into his closet, they would find a lot of issues. I remember some issues on ESPN where he made some insensitive statements around females. And he was quick to start, backtracking and mercy to save his job. So let's not, as that saying goes, when you live in a glass house, you shouldn't be throwing stones, ESPN, or anybody else who's taking the position to say that's good for Aaron Hernandez. I'm glad he's dead. Because I, for one, am not glad that he's dead. Should he have paid a price for his crimes? Yes. Was he paying the price for his crimes? Yes. Did he take his own life? Yes. Should I be sitting around celebrating it or being insensitive to his family, to the community, to his Steelers fans? No. Because when you start dealing again with suicide and the thoughts of suicide and what drives people into these places, you really have to slow down before you again start throwing these rocks. If living in a glass house, you have to step back and start asking other questions. Could he have been helped? Were there signs? What were the indicators? Because they're there. It's the whole thing. Suffering. Peacefully. You know what I'm saying? Crying in my sleep. And I truly, truly believe that, this is another indicator to us that we have to really pay closer attention, to this disease. And it's a mental disease, that's affecting, people young and old, and makes them feel that somehow or another they don't matter to anybody. And that therefore, their lives are worthless and they take their lives. And I truly believe that, being incarcerated does not end your life. Anyone can make a mistake. All of us are capable of doing something that could land us in prison. And we don't know until we're in that environment how we're going to react to it. I think Mike Tyson said everybody's got a game plan when they get in the ring until they get hit. And so what I am saying is that, This is a situation no tragic than, a kid who is ODing on heroin. And we know that opiate addiction is taking our children in the inner cities and the suburbs all over this country. I think I heard a statistic the other day. It was something like, I want to say it was like 90 deaths per day with opioids. Do we go around saying that's good for them? They should be dead because they were hooked on heroin? I should say not. And I think that if we're going to make these judgments, then they need to be balanced, and we need to be consistent with it. And we shouldn't be singling out, well, a liar is worse than a thief, and a thief is worse than a burglar, and a burglar is worse than a robber, I don't know, a murderer is worse than, I don't know, a rapist. I think at the end of the day, we have to go back and we have to see these things as what they are. And these are problems inside of a society that has literally gone mad on, violence, aggressiveness, revenge. It's almost like we're drinking this maddening blood of revenge and just saying, you know what, just give me some revenge. Let me go do something, wicked, and let me see something evil happens, and guess I'm going to feel so much better. Well, let me let you in on a clue. No, you're not. No, you're not. And as I close, I'll share this with you. And I'm talking, most of you guys probably have heard this. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. And also, be not deceived. God is not mocked. Whatever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. So when you start judging others, are you prepared to be judged the same way? If you fell into hardship or you made a poor decision, are you ready for that? Or if your child fell into hardship or your child made a poor decision, are you ready for the full hammer of society to fall on your son or daughter's head? And want everyone to say, good, I'm glad, they destroyed your son and daughter, because you know what? You're not going to find any sympathy here. I suspect, you need to get the mote out of your own eye before you start talking about the beam that's in another's eye. So that said, again, it's a sad day for the Hernandez family. I'm sure it's a sad day for the fans. It's a sad day for New England, as far as I'm concerned. And, may God, have mercy on this young man's soul, and may God's mercy and grace befall his family. And I would ask all of us, regardless of how you feel about Aaron Hernandez and what he did, to at least take some time and reflect on, if he was your son, if he was your brother, if he was your loved one, how would you want him to be remembered? And do you really believe that the best memory for him is for everybody to just jump on the pile and just talk about how wicked and evil he was without taking any consideration about his journey? And maybe he had a father, a role model, someone to catch him, young enough. Could his life have been different? And maybe that's where the problem is versus where the consequences currently lie. There you have it. Now you know. DFG. Thanks for listening, guys. God bless you.